Alright, welcome back folks. It's me, Crazy Welder again, and in today's video we're going to be going over the mod to the HTC Vive, the original HTC Vive, which adds an additional layer of comfort to your existing headset. Now you might be wondering, why, do something like this. It looks kind of wonky, and now that the Vive Pro is out, now that the Index is out, why would you go for something like this? And the reasons are actually pretty simple. It's because now that the other headsets are sort of out and about, you've got an opportunity to buy a headset like this for pretty cheap. The issue is that the deluxe audio strap will set you back about $100, which is pretty expensive, and usually even if you get it used, it's still going to cost you anywhere in the neighborhood of like $60 to $80, and then you're looking at potential damage to the strap itself and a lot of wear and tear. But the stock sort of, elastic strap is very uncomfortable. I've had a lot of issues with it gaining the amount of tension needed to have the headset stay stable on my head, but at the same time not hurt me while playing. And a lot of times you end up having to find a kind of comfort point that's somewhere in the middle, which means that you're sacrificing on something, which means it'll work for slower games but probably not for faster ones. And when you do want to play faster games for extended periods of time, then you end up having basically a ski goggle kind of indent on your face from the foam on the headset itself. Now with this, you've got the Miller welding headgear, and in my case I've kind of customized it to have a little bit more padding around the head, and at that point forward you're able to adjust the rear part of it using a little slider back here, so that can kind of contour to the back of your head as you're playing. And in addition, as you can see, there are some 3D printed components to allow the actual headset to attach to the goggles themselves, which again just makes your life significantly easier. Now, the headset itself, meaning the actual headgear attachment, is approximately about $15 to $20 depending on when and how you buy it. I ended up buying mine off of Amazon, and I'll put the link in the description below. The price on this seems to vary quite a bit, but you can also go for a different headgear style. I don't remember the manufacturer name off the top of my head, but I'll put the links to the STL files needed as well as the headgear should you decide to go for a different type. But this particular one works extremely well because it's able to distribute the forces that are acting on your head as you're using the VR headset significantly more than even the deluxe audio strap. And in some ways, I think it even rivals the actual headgear on the Vive Pro as well in terms of the comfort level that you get. Now, the 3D printed pieces, there are two types. There's this one, which is kind of designed for, this kind of headgear, and the other one, which is designed for a slightly wider version of this, and also for folks that have a wider head, so you can get those in two different varieties. But by and large, you can spend about $12 to something like $30 like me, depending on the print quality you want. If you already have a 3D printer, potentially you can have these pieces made for free, and it's as simple as just detaching these little sort of plastic pieces that are on the side of the headgear and basically slipping them through into the actual plastic 3D printed piece to get this thing to attach. So it's dead simple. Now if you want to get the actual headgear attachment, I'll give you guys kind of a brief video later on that, on how I made this happen. Basically just takes a little bit of sewing, but you don't have to necessarily go that route. The biggest thing for me with this particular headset is just how much nicer it is in terms of wearability. Again, as I've said, the sort of problem with the elastic straps that come with this headset are that they don't really do a particularly good job of staying on your head. This thing does absolutely incredible, and I'll show you guys in just a second, more or less how this actually presents itself and how much better it actually is in terms of the overall comfort level. Now, the head shapes will kind of determine how actually comfortable you feel within this headset, but for me it makes a huge difference, especially if you're somebody that has, sort of a slower GPU where you can't necessarily push the Vive Pro or something like the HP Reverb. This just makes a lot of sense because you're able to get this headset and you're able to now get it to a comfort level that's good for you, and you're going to be within the Vive ecosystem, which again is a huge boon because you're able to get some fantastic tracking, but at a third of the cost, sometimes even less so than the other headsets, which means again that you're getting a great deal on high quality tracking, and now with this comfort mod you are able to additionally play for a very long time without getting any sort of serious discomfort. And when you look at the pricing for this, comparatively, you're looking at, potentially at the high end, $50 for a build like this, which again comes in below the price of what you'd pay for the deluxe audio strap. And you can make it as cheap as potentially just 20, 22 bucks just by paying for the headgear itself, if you already have a 3D printer. So again, very cheap mod for the amount of comfort that you get out of it. Personally, I think compared to the deluxe audio strap, this particular setup is better. Again, you still have the tensioner in the back should you need to do that, but it just distributes the weight significantly more than the other headset does. And again, you're able to kind of modify this thing to fit your needs. There are a number of adjustments in here that you can make in terms of sliding this back and forth. So again, if you have a different size head, this will kind of tend to do a pretty good adjustment for that in terms of gripping your head and in terms of gripping different types of heads, which for the most part I found that on the deluxe audio strap it can do that to a degree, but there's certainly limitations in terms of what it's capable of doing. And most people that have tried the system online have said even their kids are able to be a lot more comfortable in this than anybody else or using any other kind of head strap. So again, it's just a really nice mechanism for getting this headset to a sort of more modern state, and also be it more comfortable for gaming for multiple hours at a time, which is of course huge for something like this, because if you're getting into the Vives now, this is basically the best thing you can do for it. This is the best, most comfortable headgear set I've seen for it so far. Now I am going to be making a video about some of the other headsets that I found online that you can 3D print, which can potentially make your experience just as good or possibly better, depending. I'm not going to get into reviewing that particular one, as I will be selling my headset, the Vive, as I now have the Vive Pro, but this thing for me has made a huge difference in terms of gaming, especially for extended periods of time. And again, I'll show you guys just in a moment here how easy of a setup it is getting this thing onto your head. Okay folks, so the setup is dead simple. All you really have to do after you've attached this thing is you simply put it over your head. Again, depending on the head shape you have and depending on how much tension you want and where, you want to adjust the rear portion of this guy so that it actually sits nice and flush against your head. And as you can see, pretty much immediately you're in this device and you're able to just roam around, and you can really just move your head all over the place and it stays nice and easy. It doesn't really move around too much. The only real problem with this thing as it stands is that what you'll happen to have is a little bit more pressure on your nose. Now this is slightly alleviated if you get the bigger nose attachment and put it in so that it doesn't sit on the bridge of your nose as much, but that'll also depend on the shape of the nose that you have too. For me, this actually sits really well. Again, you can tension these pieces differently and you can kind of squeeze the top piece there so that it contours to the back of your head a little bit more. This piece in the back is quite adjustable too. And once you've got this all sorted, you've got a really nice and very tight amount of pressure that you can also then kind of dial back if you need it to be a little bit more loose, or you can dial it up for additional security if you're playing a game that's high intensity, for example Beat Saber or something like super hot, where you need to really twist around really quick to be able to actually get the most out of it. Now for me personally, as I've said before, this comfort mod is absolutely massive in terms of just the ergonomics of the headset. It makes life 10 times more comfortable for you within a headset like this. Again, you can also customize the different pads, the velar pads that go on here between your face and the actual headset, so that you can get the most optimal kind of performance and the most optimal comfort for you as you start using this thing more and more. And that'll also kind of dial in how much, for example, FOV you'll have in terms of how close you want to get your face or how far from the lenses themselves. And again, super simple setup, very easy to get in and out, and you don't have to deal with any kind of straps or any sort of fancy adjustments that you need to do. Once you've got this thing on your head, it just works. Again, extremely comfortable, tons of adjustability that's built into this thing by default. Overall, if you were to give this thing a score, I would certainly say this thing is about like a 9.5 out of 10 in terms of the comfort level, in terms of the ease of putting this thing together. Also, very low on the scale. The difficulty would be something like 2 out of 10, because it really is just drop in and drop out. As far as the pieces go, once you got the 3D printed pieces on here, and removing the original strap is also supremely simple. You know, you really just can't beat the amount of quality that, you know, this thing has. Again, because it was designed for welders who are obviously on the job for hours at a time, the comfort level that they need is pretty supreme. And, you know, considering that your average helmet that, you know, is used in tight quarters would probably weigh about a little bit more than the actual HMD and also be just as front heavy, you have to realize that this offloads a lot of that front heaviness because it's able to spread that over a wider area of your head. And unlike the, for example, halo designs where you end up having a lot of that pressure on the forehead, which means it's going to concentrate more of that weight there, this spreads it out a lot more evenly, and even more so than having the actual strap that goes over the back of your head to be able to make this supremely comfortable for hours on end. And that's really the big difference with this, is that unlike most other designs and unlike most other headsets, this is arguably the best kind of design you can have for an HMD. And so I think, you know, overall, when you're looking at purchasing a comfort mod for your original Vive, this really is the best way to go. Now, again, there are other comfort mods that I'll cover in a different video, so stick around for that. But in the meantime, check this out. You know, check out the links that I'll put in the description for making this yourself, as well as just, you know, the various other headgear attachments that you can have. I'll put those in the link for the description of the video, so you can always go back and check those out at your leisure. And I'll see you folks in the next video.